So I sort of had an experience yesterday, or no, it was today, but earlier in the morning, in the night, I mean, and it was while sleeping or dreaming, and this got me thinking to something and seeing some things and about dreams and sleep. And I was sitting now in my inner space, and for some reason, my awareness started to look in this area of lucid dreaming. And I thought to record something short, it might be short, this video, um, about what I was seeing. So I think I might need to start from the experience itself that happened yesterday. It wasn't, I wouldn't consider it something extraordinary or something like that, but it was a certain experience that for me it had an impact of sorts. So the idea is that, um, first of all, since I started to practice this practice of having a more clear mind, a more clear state of mind, a more, let's call it simply said, silent mind, which I'm far from saying that my mind is silent all the time, but it has been a constant practice to deepen this silence and this stillness of the mind. So, at least before going to bed, since years now, there has been a permanent, almost permanent, uninterrupted practice that before going to bed, there was the practice of like stilling the mind and everything, and all the I don't know, just a practice of stilling the mind basically and retracting back to the center, the self. And this in and of itself, I've observed over the years how going to bed, going to sleep with a quiet mind, with a clear mind, completely changed the quality in a way of the dreams themselves. First of all, I could remember dreams much more in the morning, but then the dreams themselves seem to be of a different nature. So if in the past, before I was practicing this practice, if in the past, for example, I would just go to bed directly after a day, I would just go to sleep. And what I think was happening in the past is that my dreams would be much more, let's say, those types of dreams about recycling information that happened either during the day or information connected with things that happened in my human life. So it was more of like a personal subconscious. It was, I consider it like dreams coming more from my personal human, this Denisa, subconscious. So the life of this version of Denisa here and its own thought processes and beliefs and emotions and feelings and things of this nature. So it's like during sleep usually there is processing happening. Our being processes information, our body processes information, and the idea is that I've seen that if I, with this practice, after starting to take this practice, I've observed how through this process of stilling the mind, it appears to me, at least, this is my theory that I have, is that a certain processing is done just by sitting in this inner stillness and in this inner silence. There seems to be this other intelligence. I personally view it as a much broader, extended intelligence, which seems much more broader than my conscious mental intelligence that I can consider as my mental intelligence here in this body. So there is seems to be this higher intelligence which seems invisible in a way, like not readily understandable, but it can be perceived in that inner silence. It can be perceived that there is an activity of a higher intelligence active. And I feel that as much as I hold that inner silence, there is this higher intelligence at work. And it can work with my psyche in a much more, let's say, flawless way, if that makes sense. And I feel that as much as I hold that inner silence, it's like clearing. It's like a clearing of all the information that has been accumulated during the day. It's like, you know how I see that inner silence is like washing. It's like a water that comes and washes all the impurities. It just cleans the psyche, it cleans the body, it cleans the self. It just feels like an it's more than an energy. I don't view it as an energy. I view it as something more subtle, more true than even energy. Mm, but there is this, I don't know a word yet for it, but there is this thing, this activity, let's call it, which is both processing and clearing and is like uniting and assembling puzzle pieces to their correct place. So if in my waking life I might have been thinking about things, feeling things, and all this like not understanding things and trying my mind, my little mind, this conscious mind, trying to put things together and things of this nature. If my conscious mind would have interacted with the physical reality, my perceived physical reality, my perceived version of the physical reality, so my conscious mind would have interacted with my perceived version of the physical reality in the way it is perceived by my mind. So it would have created all these impressions, all these beliefs or doubts or things, thoughts or whatever. In that inner stillness, in that practice of the inner stillness, it feels like all those fragments of information, all those things that my mind has interacted with during the day, in that practice of stillness that I have been practicing before sleep, it feels to me that a higher your intelligence is taking all that information and somehow putting it and arranging it into a correct framework. Is like giving it a correct alignment of sense and meaning, but without my conscious mind realizing what is happening, without me actually knowing how that arrangement and that activity of the higher mind is happening. So I don't feel that I am at that level to be consciously aware of what this higher mind is actually doing. So what I am aware of right up until this moment has been what I have been aware of up until this moment has been holding the inner stillness and just being in the inner stillness, and that's it. But in that inner stillness, I could feel that even though my mind cannot perceive it and have any sense of it, there was another part of me that could perceive that there is a clearing happening, there is a process happening, there is an alignment happening. Something was working, a higher mind was working. So I feel that through this process of inner stillness that I have been practicing it before sleep, there is a lot of processing of the information of my human life happening before I go to sleep. So when I go to sleep, it's like mostly all the puzzle pieces, if if anything turbulent, I mean, no, all the puzzle pieces are kind of put into their right place before I go to sleep. That is, if not anything turbulent or something extraordinary has happened that might require a lot of processing. But in a normal day, let's say, with usual events or usual mm, routines of information, the processing is might it seems to be able to be processed during that time of stillness before sleep. So I feel that through that through that process of stillness that I have been practicing it before sleep, much of the information from my daily life and from my human life is being processed, and all the puzzle pieces are being put into their, let's say, respective correct places. Now, then I go to sleep, and then because most of the information of my human self has been already processed, I feel that my dreams, what my let's say dream self, or let's say astral self, is doing, or higher being, or I haven't yet correctly understood what exactly happens during sleep. So I know I have read perhaps some theories, but I usually try to go with my own instincts, my own feelings, my own information, even though I might have read things about that is the astral body and the astral self. Like, that for me doesn't mean that much. Like, until I understand it through myself, that it's only like a theory, like I would have watch a cartoon or watch a movie. Like, okay, I can read about theories about the astral plane or that being the astral body, but unless I experience it and understand it through myself, for me it just remains like, okay, it's like a theory. So all information needs to be verified here through my own being, and then it is understood truly. um so me personally, I haven't reached a conclusion yet about what happens during sleep. I only have brief notions, personal notions, because there that wasn't even a reason for this, is that sleep hasn't been yet an area in which I focused my awareness to understand what is it. So I had other interests to understand first, like what is pain, why do we suffer, what does it mean to speak, what does it mean to take an action, what does it mean relationships with other people. So I try to understand the basics of trying to make the mind and body work in this physical conscious realm, because there was a lot of pain and a lot of trauma and a lot of things that need to be dealt here in these realities. And I had other interests in a way for my personal investigations. So I didn't manage yet to get to that area of exploring and going and understanding what happens in the sleep. I have some cues, but it hasn't been a focus yet for my self investigation. But there are some cues. So to get back, when I go to sleep with that clear mind, I feel that most of the information during the day has been already processed somehow through the body and through the self. And now when I go to sleep, this being of mine that experiences itself in the dreams seems to be processing a different type of information, which I would call it. I came to see it more as either either a sort of like soul, like related to my soul, the soul memories, the soul information. Like if this life here would be only my life, the life of Denisa in this version, and the soul would be, let's say, all the versions of Denisa plus all the other versions of whatever my soul is mm, immersed in. Who knows if there would be other characters, possible other characters, or who knows that my soul is playing as. Hmm. So if I much of the information from Denisa has been processed by Denisa before sleep. When I go to sleep, it's like I become my being becomes goes to the soul level, and I am mostly the dreams have a sort of like I don't know how to call them, like transcendental quality to them. It's like I'm not dreaming things about Denisa. I'm dreaming like the dreams can be things quite out of this world, like almost having nothing to do with this world here, this reality here. Uh, Many times there would be dreams in which there would be completely different realities. I remember a dream in which I was in a room. It was still a reality, of course, because it's a dream. It's we are still there is was still a construct. We are still in consciousness, so there is content, because the astral world is just still consciousness, but it's of a different nature, more malleable, more fluid, but it's still content. So I was a sort of like, I don't know. I remember a dream in which I was a sort of, I think I was like a magus, or like this old guy, a sort of magician of sorts, and I remember there were objects or things in that room that I've never seen, and they would be inexplainable for this human mind here. Like there were some objects there, and I was interacting with them, and I was knowing what I was doing, but that was one of the dreams that I was a bit more lucid in them. But when I woke up, and it was like, oh my god, like I have no idea what those things are, although in the dream I knew what I was doing, but my mind here has no clue, because it was a completely different reality, completely different objects, completely different meanings. I remember there was this thing, and there I knew quite well what that was, and I was working with it, but it has no correlation in anything that I've seen. Other times in dreams, I would dream of being not necessarily human, but being this. Sometimes I had a dream when I was a cloud, for example, and it felt quite real, and I was real. I was a cloud, and I had a personality, and I had a vision, like I was going somewhere, and I was kind of a clumsy one. And what else? I think um I had another dream in which I was something else. I don't know if a plant at some point, or but and then all these dreams of like quite out there fantasy, like even the most science fiction movies won't compare ever to these some of these dreams that were extremely out there. Some of them were like multi-dimensional ships going through dimensions, ships that could, like I was operating a ship that could go through dimensions. Other times I like a ship could there was a sort of ship that I was operating, but it was also like having to do like with modifying the weather, or there were like things that have nothing to do with this personal Denisa. So this is how I understood that as much as the information of this present life and present day is processed before sleep, then when I go to sleep, I can access the world of my own soul, and I can access different areas of my soul, and not necessarily need to use the power of my soul to process this life here, the events of this life here of Denisa. So for me, it felt interesting because my dreams felt much more interesting this way. Mm, so to get back to yesterday, um, yesterday I think I don't know, I don't know if this is true, but this is an explanation that I felt like it might be, this might have happened. But I think when I went to sleep yesterday, I had an intense sense of clarity and self-awareness. It was very, very clear. It was like, quite well. I was feeling like intense self-clarity, intense self-beingness, trueness, awareness, me, true me, and in this body, in this human body. Um, so I don't know if it was this, but when I went to sleep, the dreams is like I was in the dream world, and the dream world seemed to be like a copy of this world. So I dreamt a dream in which I was in bed, but it was slightly different, a bit distorted. Like it was a side reality in which things were like this a bit. It was this room, it was this bed, but it also different. There was a light switch on that wall, which in this version there is no light switch there. There was, there were other elements, but I was still in bed, and I went into that dream. But I think either because I had that type of clear lucidity before entering sleep, I don't know if that was the key, that was the reason, but it's like I was in the dream, but I was not, I was a bit aware of myself. So I was in the dream, but I was not fully in the dream. It's like having a lucid dream, but not fully lucid. So I was like maybe 54% lucid. And by the way, here I need to make a small detour and say that in my 20s, so maybe 10, 15 years back, I had this period of experimenting a bit with lucid dreaming. Perhaps I had maybe 3 lucid dreams, very short, but that was all. And I didn't continue then, nor, I don't know, it just didn't happen for me to, it wasn't a thing that I went into. Um, mm, so yesterday, so over this year, sometimes I would have but spontaneous lucid dreams without me doing anything. That just I would sometimes manage to have a dream in which I was more present there in the dream, and I knew, okay, so this is a dream. Let me absorb all the details. Let me be present, and but that would only spontaneously happen sometimes. But last night, I think what happened is like either because what was that lucidity before sleep, or perhaps that has no connection with it. Uh, but it felt like I was in that dream, which felt very similar to this reality. But I was still a bit of myself, bit of this self here, like exactly this structure, this personality, this mental cognitive structure, Denisa here. So it felt like a part of this conscious self, a part of this self here was in the dream as well. It merged a bit in the dream. So I wasn't fully in my dream self. It felt like it was a merge between this self and the dream self. And the idea is that the dream went on, and I was aware at some point that I was here in bed, but I was there in bed also in the same position, the same. I don't know. I was staying in bed in a certain position, and I was in that position in that place exactly like that in two places at once. It was this room here and that room in the dream, and it was so similar, just a bit different in that because there was a light switch and some other differences. But I was in the same position, and it felt so strange in a way because I woke up, something happened, and I woke up here in this bed, and while I woke up, I remained with the feeling of that other reality. I remained with that feeling, but really, really well. It was like I couldn't understand clearly the separation between those two realities. And then a feeling arose in me and felt like, because due to this practice of self lucidity and um, stealing the mind and having this level of finer and finer perception and sense of self, like my true sense of being, I over time and over these years, I've started to immediately perceive when there is something foreign in my energetic body. So I kind of started to get acquainted with my natural energetic body, how it feels when there is me and my energy. And whenever something new comes, I can immediately sense it. And any perturbations to my natural energetic body is kind of felt much more readily with all these years of practice. So last night, when I woke up here in this reality from that dream, which resembled this reality, my energetic body was a sort of mixture between this energetic body here and that reality there. It's like it was like the border between that reality and this one wasn't clear anymore, and it was like a merging between them. And personally, that felt unright. Like it felt like, again, because usually through this practice, there feels to be this sense of clear lucidity of my true self in this body. When last night I've experienced that merging between two energetic bodies, it didn't felt that that was true. I don't know, it that other energetic body merging and melting and leaking leaking into this one, it felt like it was like a thing creating confusion in this energetic body here. It felt like something that was fogging, or it was for sure, it felt like something which much more unreal than this reality. So for sure, that reality there, it felt much more unreal, by the way, than this one. Even though, how can I explain this? Even though physically speaking, physically, sensorially, that dream felt as real sensorially from a physical perspective. All the senses were as real as this physical reality here. So in the dream, there was no distinction. It was as real as this one, if not sometimes they are more real, the dreams. The sensations in the dreams are more real than these ones. But what is missing in the dreams, and this is I feel there is a key in this. What is missing in the dreams is a sense of consciousness, conscious awareness of self. There is missing the reality of the self. Not, it's like the sensorial experiences are as real as this reality, and sometimes more real than this reality. Like in some of the lucid dreams that I have, the reality felt enormously more vivid, more real, more concrete than this one. But the sense of self is feels much more fleeting. It feels like there is a sort of unawareness of self. Like you could hop from one one scene of a dream to another scene of a dream. You could be, let's say, I'm just hypothetically speaking right now. You could be in a desert in 1 second, and then you think about something else, and you're there. You're in a rainforest in another second, and nothing seems strange. You're just your mind switches and your environment switches. This is how it is in the dream world. It's like thoughts are physical, so you cannot think a thought and without experiencing something physical immediately changing. So each thought, each intention, each emotion is represented physically. So the thoughts are out here. They are like, it feels like the environment and the thoughts and me is like one. It's like if I feel something, woof, it changes. If I feel something else, woof, it changes. I don't need to do anything. It just changes. If I am in a desert and I'm thinking of the rainforest, woof, all of a sudden it's there. A portion of my visual field becomes a rainforest. Oh, should I go there? It's like instantly it changes. So everything is instant in the dream world, in the astral world, which I find it annoying, by the way. Not annoying. I would describe now from which perspective. It's because with all this fleeting, with all this instant, let's say, manifestation, which is not manifestation, it's just representation. I don't view it as manifesting instantly. That's not manifestation in my view. I don't view manifestation in that way, in which you feel something and it's just represented in your face, right? Like that. That's not my concept of manifestation, by the way. Manifestation, I view it as something else, which is deliberate intent. It's conscious, self-aware intent. It's completely different how I view manifestation, true manifestation. But that is like a direct representation. It's like an instant representation, if I would call it that. You feel something and it's represented in your face. It takes a shape and a form. You have a certain drive, it is represented instantly. Well, here in this reality, it doesn't. It's not represented instantly. You can feel and think things without the reality here morphing, which, in my opinion, has a great quality. It has a great advantage for this. But so in the astral, in the dream world, because everything manifests, is represented. Let's say it doesn't manifest. It is represented so instantly. So anything that you think or feel or intend or any drive, any desire, anything, it's whoop, changes the environment, whoop, changes the reality. People appear, disappear, environments appear, disappear, you appear from different places or outlets and shape shifts and whatever. And it's like, because of this, finding the true self, finding the true sense of self can be quite a challenge, because there is so much content going on, there is so much appealing representations, like anything that you feel, whoop, a reality appears and you're like, whoa, what's that? And you go there and then you feel something else, whoa, what's that other thing? And whoop, other thing appears. And you can just go on like that, but you're going out like that, and you're never like I personally, like, I far from saying what other people are experiencing in their dreams. I'm far from saying that people who practice, who knows what type of practices, like maybe they have a lot of like inner perception, inner awareness in their dreams. But through my experience so far, even though in my dreams I had deep awareness of my feelings, thoughts, senses, intuitions, and I could perceive the intentions of people. Oh, that thing, that guy wants to do that, and I will do this other thing. So I did had a lot of strong sense of intuition and perception and hidden perceptions, like sixth sense in my dreams, and I could feel and think, and I could feel my inner, I could have an inner world. That's what I'm saying. I could have an inner world in my dreams, but the inner world, I see it separate as something different than myself. When I say self, I mean the core of myself, the being, the true being, which is at the core of everything, which has zero emotions, which has zero intuitions, which has zero thoughts, which has zero feelings, which is the core, is the being, it's the self itself. Eh, with that self, I either I don't remember, because that could be possible, but from what I remember from my dreams, I have almost no recollection connecting with that level of myself in the dreams. The only reality in which I have recollection of connecting with that part of myself is this one, this reality here, where paradoxically things are not represented instantly. A reality in which my thoughts, emotions, feelings, drives are not immediately changing with the environment. The environment feels dull, feels like almost unanswering to my intentions, which I've struggled with this. There were years in which I've struggled understanding why. Why is not why this environment is not immediately responding to my intents and to my thoughts and to my I struggled with this and I cursed in a way this reality here. And also now I've been a bit harsh. I've questioned why, like saying I've cursed it. Yeah, it was far from being that. But it's like I've questioned, but deeply questioning with like a grunge type of questioning. Why is this reality failing to respond immediately to my intents? And even since I was a child, I knew I remember I was staying somewhere on the roof, and I was trying to talk with the wind, and I was trying to influence the wind, and I didn't understand. Like for me, it felt so natural to be able to work with the wind and call it, and but it wouldn't work. So I was staying hours there on the roof talking to the wind, and it didn't feel to work, but it came from a natural sense within me that it should work. This reality should respond to my intentions. It should respond to my feelings and thoughts. And but as we can see, it doesn't. It doesn't immediately. I mean, respond. And I now kind of see it as a clever design. It's a clever thing that it doesn't, because if it would respond instantly, I feel that our own representations, because as I said, in the dream world, each intent, each feeling, each emotion, each thought is represented almost instantly in front of me as a reality, as a visible reality. So it's easy to get extremely mesmerized by the representations of my inner world and just go deeper into them and explore them and continue to explore them, but so much that it feels like I'm in a complete loss of the sense of that core self, which is beyond even my intentions and my feelings and all of those things that make up my persona. So the being is beyond even those ones, beyond the persona. Mm. So in this reality here, paradoxically, where the environment seems so dull, it doesn't respond to immediately, it doesn't immediately seem to respond to intents and emotions and feelings and thoughts and desires and what all of this, it doesn't seem to immediately respond. I feel that there can be seen as a great value for giving the beings that are interested in recognizing the deepest, most truest part of themselves, the core, giving them a chance to actually make that realization. Because in the dream world, we feel like I feel that there we can become so caught up in our self-representations, because that's what happens in the dream world. What we call manifestation is that those instant manifestations, as I said, I view them only as self-representations. But our self-representations happen so quick and so instant that we feel like almost mesmerized, like you would have that myth of Narcissus looking into the pond, looking at its own self-image and just remaining there for years, looking and looking and looking at itself, mesmerized by its own self-image. This is how I see the astral and the dream world, and any other reality in which self-representation happens instantly. It's like we can get so caught up in our self-representations that we almost like completely forget the self, completely forget the core. But here in this reality in which things appear so dull, self-representation doesn't happen instantly, and even more, it feels like a shitty representation in and of itself. It feels like so much pain, so much suffering, so much nonsense, so much like it doesn't even, or it doesn't happen instantly, but it is not even a self-representation that you feel comfortable in being. It's like a tortured, twisted, denaturated self-representation that feels ah. It's like, but paradoxically, in this, let's say, crappy, seemingly crappy reality, the gift, in a way, the value is that when all our powers have been taken away, the powers to create, let's say, represent ourselves instantly, which we call manifestation and so on, when all the powers are stripped away, all the embellishments are stripped away, what remains is the core, if we want to see it. So I believe that this reality here, as crappy as it might look and behave, and it really behaves in a crappy way towards the soul and its abilities, and it might give us an opportunity to actually meet a deeper part of ourselves, even deeper than the soul, which is the spirit, which is the core, which is the self with big S. And when all the powers don't work, when everything that the soul knew, all its capacities stop working, it's like the soul itself becomes engulfed in a sense of pure darkness, meaninglessness. It can't use whatever it knew how to use, because the soul pertains to the astral realm, to the dream realm, to the soul realm. That's the soul realm. When everything is taken away, remains is just the essence of things. And I feel that in this realm here, paradoxically, there might be a chance to get to the essence of things, to see the essence within us, for the beings that are ready to do this. Because I feel there are different levels, different degrees in which a being is able to see this essence of itself. I need to question if all beings are ready to see it. I really need to question this. So, to get back to my experience yesterday, why it felt unnatural for me. After I woke up in this reality from that dream, in which it was very similar to this reality. But exactly as I said, it was in the astral, it was in the dream world. Things were changing immediately. Like one time my sister was in bed with me and I was talking to her, then I was thinking to something else, she disappeared. But everything was normal. In the dream, it felt so normal. I didn't even notice these changes, like it would be something unnatural. But when I woke up here, uh, because, as I said, part of myself from this reality here merged somehow in the dream. When I woke up, the dream self merged somehow in this reality, and it felt unpleasant because the dream self comes with that sense of it kind of disturbed the clarity in this self here, because this self here doesn't have powers. This self here cannot manifest, cannot represent instantly. It its desires, its intents, its feelings and emotions, they are not instantly represented. They don't instantly manifest or change reality. And this self here, in a way, has no power, has at least has little power over reality. It's just many times it feels like it's just me, the human self, and my essence and my core is nothing else. So this is how my human self got to meet this core, because there was nothing else that it could do. Like, it didn't felt anything was working, and it has tried. It has really tried to find things that work, and they all crashed eventually. So in trying and trying and seeing that nothing works, it just in a way accepted to surrender, and that surrendering, it encountered the core, it encountered the self, the true self. So because this is what happened in this body, in this reality here, I think that this body might have acquired a sort of clarity about itself. It doesn't feel it has powers anymore, but it feels it has truth now. It has the clarity of truth. It doesn't need power. It's ready to even die each moment of each day. It's like, but it has truth. It has the core on its side. And it feels like it has acquired this thing where that's all it needs. Like, it cares less about creations or manifestations or powers or anything. It's just the core, and that's it, the true self, and that's it. It's like, and because this body here, this self here from this reality here has acquired in a way this type of clarity, when that self from that dream infiltrated, like leaked into this one, it felt like creating so much confusion. It felt like bringing so much unconsciousness into this self here, which maybe has gotten a certain degree of consciousness, which means conscious awareness of the true being, true core, true self. That's true consciousness. That's what I refer to true consciousness. True self consciousness, I mean, true self awareness. But that self in the dream, it didn't feel like it had that. That self in the dream, it didn't feel like it had self awareness, that level of self awareness. And it was able to manifest, let's say, represent instantly in the dream. And but it was convoluted. It was the manifestations were happening like that. It was a confusion overall. Like, it was like a ball of confusion around that self in the dream. When that confused self, let's say, leaked into this one, it didn't felt comfortable for this one. Plus, it felt it felt uncomfortable not only for this reason, but for a different reason also. It was because that self there, the dream self, when it leaked into this one, it felt like extremely, oh, it felt easy for me. It felt it came with a level of, it was exciting. It was exciting to, oh wow, like, oh wow, like, oh, the things that I could do in dreams, it felt like it gave me this, it ignited in me this thing like, oh, I could explore much more, and I could do much more, and I could, it felt really this temptation of sorts of, oh my god, yeah, but imagine like being in multiple places and exploring the dream worlds and this reality and merging them, and it felt tempting to escalate my experience of myself to degrees in which I personally at this moment feel I might not be able to handle properly. Because I feel that before stepping truly into interacting with the dream selves and with the dream world, I this is how I view it. I mean, this is my opinion and my feeling about this. But the way I view it is that I would view myself to first have a very clear understanding of who I am at the truest, deepest level of myself. Not only mental understanding, but embodied. It's like embodied existence of the truth, of the truth. Once I would see myself as the embodied truth of myself, then I think once that realization, once that truth is bodily here in this physical body, embodied fully in each cell remembering the self, each cell remembering the core, each parts of my entire physical being the self here, then I think I would perhaps feel c- comfortable. Who knows? Because that's when the self would come with its intelligence and drive the experience. So I cannot predict, but I can just suppose that perhaps at that moment I might be able to feel comfortable to interact with my dream selves and to interact with the dream world as an established true being here in this body. Because then I would have the truth by my side, then I would know who I am. But without knowing here first who I am in this body, without fully becoming fully conscious of myself here, like going into the dream world just feels like disturbing the waters. It's like disturbing some waters that I feel we a human might need a lot of, like, a mind so sharp, an inner discipline so acute before going and interacting with the dream world. Because there, imagine that there in the dream world, in the astral, there are all these forgotten parts of ourselves, all the ancestral memories of our entire soul, the experiences and things we might not even imagine. We barely are able to understand and to cope here with a person like cutting us in traffic, you know? Like, how would we be able to go in the astral and be able to truly engage with experiences cosmic, of a cosmic nature, like nuclear experiences compared to perhaps some of the experiences that we have here? So I feel that after waking up this morning, or it was in the middle of the night actually, I felt like I felt, oh, first I felt the excitement of, oh wow, like, I can start merging with the dreams and the dream worlds, and the dream worlds can start merging in this reality here, because it felt like they would. It felt like the dream self leaked into this self here. But then I realized it, oh, because I have the practice. I can observe how, as I said, I can observe immediately when something is not quite natural. It's unnatural. It's an infiltration in my true energetic body. Something is it's unnatural. I can immediately see it now if I pay attention. So I started to pay attention, and as I started to pay attention to my inner self, I immediately saw it. It was unnatural. It that dream self leaking into this one created a lot of excitement for my soul here, because it felt like, oh, the things I could do, and it like stimulated it. But at the same time, for my core, for my being, who now, for my human being who has this devotion, is like, no, it's the core, it's the spirit, it's the self, it's the only thing that currently matters, has come to matter, I mean. um it felt like, yep, but no, I'll skip that. uh I choose to skip interacting with the dream self, interacting with the dream world, accepting to merge this reality with the dream reality. And even though this reality feels limiting and I don't have powers and I suffer and I feel pain and I don't know what things are and things of this nature, I prefer to remain like that. Like, I prefer to remain like this, limited, unknowing, whatever, than to start messing and going to some areas of my subconscious mind, which is the astral, before actually tackling this self here, before actually completely, let's say, coming into consciousness, full consciousness and awareness with this self here. And this is my thoughts, in a way, my first thoughts on lucid dreaming. I feel that lucid dreaming mainly and dreaming in general and interacting in the dream world. I feel the dream world is the world of the soul. So if you enter into the dream world, you enter into the world of the soul. That's the Akashic records. That's the ancient memory or library of the self. That's all the experiences that have ever happened and that, in my opinion, could ever happen. That's the world of the archetypes, the primordial beings, the primordial archetypes, it's a lot. And I think the proper way to do this, as I said, might be through first doing it through acquiring true self knowledge, true self awareness here as this self in this body, and then slowly extending outwards towards the that's the multiverse, basically the astral, towards the multiverse of experiences and the soul memories and libraries and all other experiences, because this body here, this self here, this reality here feels like the central point. It can become the central point, it can become the command prompt from which all other realities of our being, of our soul, can be tackled from. But if we don't first tackle and master, fully master this reality here, this limiting, so called, seemingly crappy reality here, in which there is pain, there is suffering, there is nonsense, there is unknowing, there is limiting, but everything, unless we start from here, this is ground zero. Unless we anchor here the power and the truth of spirit here in this limiting, dying body, prone to diseases, prone to suffering, prone to pain, prone to fear, prone to all these feelings and emotions, and unless we first are able to do it here in this body, which can become the command prompt, then just extending and going into these other realms, I don't know how in the long term that can play out. I don't know, because it just feels like going out to play, but without fully being a developed being on your own. Because this is the command prompt. This body here, if we manage to anchor spirit here to become the spirit embodied in this body here, then the world can open up. We can go anywhere and be anything and play with anything, because we have already realized the truth. We already became, not only mentally realized, we became. It's an embodied thing. It's an embodied spirit embodied. But unless that is the case, they going out there but as a half developed being or undeveloped being. And it's just, in my opinion, through my intuition and inner feeling, is like I could just go in those realms, but I would come just much more confusion. It would just create much more confusion for me. And I think that it's the same with, for example, doing psychedelics. It's the same because psychedelics only they tackle and they operate with the same thing. It's the world of the astral. It's the world of the cosmic experiences of the so-called multiverse. But again, doing psychedelics when we are not yet fully established as a fully embodied spirit in this body here can create confusion. I'm not saying that psychedelics cannot be a boot start, like giving one the 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 evidence, the proofs that there is something more, and it can prove beneficial, and it's something worthy to start working with this body and this human self here. So I think psychedelics, by the way, just to make a short detour, can be regarded as a poison and a cure at the same time. You know how if you have a poison and you take just a bit of it, it can become a cure. But if you take a lot, it can become a poison. So I think that's my notion. That's my current view on psychedelics. Is like if you take a bit, it can open you to the possibilities, and it can give you a glimpse of the possibilities of your soul, which the soul is just the expression of yourself. It's the collection of all your self representations. It can give you a glimpse of your power, of the power of your soul, but then you need to come into this body and develop those. Develop them is like hard work, like working in a mine to actually develop that moment by moment in this physical reality here, which is can be harsh. But this is the harsh environment here is like working in a mine. But the work in itself, the effort in itself, is what creates the diamond. The pressure creates the diamond. So the work here, the effort we do here in these bodies here, is what eventually creates that embodied self, which becomes the true being alive in a true spirit alive in a physical body. Imagine that. So after I imagine, like this is how it feels. I mean, it feels for me that after this could be accomplished, after there is a true being here in this physical body, alive through all my cells, not only through my eyes or my mind or my heart, is like all my cells, everything, full embodied spirit, then of course one can go and explore and start branching out and exploring its soul self and its full cosmic mm, canvas of self representations and just go and explore in everything with all kinds of experiences because now you one has itself, it's here, fully embodied, knowing. So yeah, that's my view on dreams and the astral. That my one of my views on dreams and the astral, and this is why I don't know what to say about lucid dreaming. I think it's like psychedelics. It's like if you take it in a small degree, it can become like a glimpse into the possibilities. But if one starts to actually dive into lucid dreaming before actually uh, fully developing this being here, which is this mortal bodily being here, then I don't know what's the gain. because you come from lucid dreaming back into this body where you're mortal, you're in pain, perhaps, even if you, let's say, manage to do stuff there and that can rewire your brain or how you perceive things, or you can manifest faster here, but still there is spirit in the body missing full embodiment. So still unconscious, fully unconscious of oneself, independent of if we go to the astral worlds and we think we are more aware and powerful and knowing of ourselves. That's not true knowledge. That's not full self-awareness. That's just the awareness of our soul self. Our soul self is our self-expression, is the possibilities of our self-expression, but we haven't yet understood the essence which creates that self-expression. So we are only tackling our possibilities of self-expression, which is the soul, but we are still not understanding the core, the source that creates the expression. So if we don't grow and operating through embodied power and merging with the source of things that creates the expressions, then the expressions will always at some point deceive us. They can create, we expect it to be in some way and they flip, because we are not yet tackling the source of the expressions themselves. So if we don't tackle the source of the soul, then if we go into the soul world, at some point there will be what we call suffering and pain, because we are still not fully aware of ourselves, which is, to be fully aware of ourselves would mean, in my opinion, to be fully aware of the spirit self as an embodied being in this body, to be the spirit in human form. So my view on lucid dreaming is, yep, it can prove helpful, just like a poison can become a cure in small degrees, taken in small um, parts. But I don't know if what would be the actual point of taking on lucid dreaming as a practice to escape this reality here, because this is what I feel some of us can be inclined to do, which I also went through this when I was experiencing with lucid dreaming in my 20s. It was because I couldn't make any sense of this reality. It's like I couldn't find anything of normality in this reality. My powers, whatever I thought it was normal to do and be, I couldn't find it here. It was just suffocating. I couldn't bear living like this anymore, in a way. So I had to try to find something more natural, and lucid dreaming was that more natural. So I'm far from saying that it cannot be a tool that can get us a bit out of our own, because of our own helplessness, and it cannot, like, it can give us a push towards our truest, more truer powers. But I personally feel that then we need to come here in this body. Then we need to come back here and do the work here in this body, in this suffocating realm, in this crappy reality. I feel this is the command prompt. This is where it starts from. This is where it has to start from, I mean. Because if we learn to the language of the command prompt, if we learn to tackle the command prompt, then everything can be operated with. It's like having the command prompt on a computer. Once you learn how to give the correct commands and write the correct things, the command prompt, then everything, both the hardware and the software, are linked to the command prompt, by the way, in a computer. So the command prompt can give instructions both to how the hardware can operates and can change how, for example, memory or working, or the fans of the laptop, or both the software. So the command prompt can command both the software and hardware of reality. And the command prompt is this physical body here. This physical reality here can, in my opinion, can become the command prompt.